No other time in the building history do we have a better understanding of what we built and what we can build. Home Building Crossroad can be a way for people to understand that our goal is to put a house in a position for success.
Welcome to the UnBuild It podcast. I'm your host, Peter Yost, and I'm with, there's a rhyme there. I never realized that.
He's the man with the most.
Yeah, well, let's
40 episodes in.
Welcome, everybody,
And live from
to
the
the
coast.
Rhyming UnBuild It podcast. I'm your host, Pete Yost, and I'm here with Steve Basic
Yo, yo, yo.
and Jake Bruton.
Hello, Peter.
And this week, it's factory-built housing. What do you think about
What does
that
that
term?
mean? I think you just made that term up. You mean like off-site construction?
Yeah, so I guess we better start by defining the term. So to me, it means anytime you're not site building, the enclosure. And so we have manufactured housing.
Part of the enclosure.
Yeah, good. It could be either all the enclosure or parts of it.
Okay.
But to me, it includes manufactured housing, right, which is mobile homes, or HUD code, I think they call it, housing. Modular, where we build units that are, craned into place.
Modular is kind of factory built. Like you're delivering a product.
Yeah, but
That's
Instead of a
almost
part
done.
of the product.
Yeah,
But
parts of the product. Like if you're panelizing walls, that's off-site construction. That's not factory built housing.
good. Okay, so
think I
we're
agree
trying to
with
make
Steve on
it
this.
to include. We're not going to discuss manufactured housing.
I
HUD
think
code.
we can pass
We're not
on
discussing
mobile home
modular.
conversation.
We're talking about panelized, right?
Which I'm told is the future of building.
How about off-site alternatives to home building?
Well, I think that's pretty cool. So,
I slept
and is
good
the
last night.
question, we've heard about this for how it's going to take over for 50, 60,
Yep.
maybe 70 years?
You're the only one that remembers 70 years ago, but go ahead.
I wonder what'll come first. Will we run out of gas before
We run out of...
Before
we
we
get-
move to off-site construction, or will we move to off-site construction before we actually run out of gas?
Huh?
Because they were both probably born about the same time,
We're always
right?
told that we're going to run out of
Early
gas, too.
70s, I mean, with the gas crisis there, oh my God, gas is going to be gone in 5 years. And here we are, 50 years later.
So
you
let's-
remember that, right? When you cranked the cars, were they
still
talking
used
about
gas at that
yeah, they
point,
were
too,
using
yeah.
gas when you had to get out and crank
they
the
did.
front of the car.
Actually, I never cranked a car, but I do remember cars.
Oh,
that
you had a guy that did it for you?
So,
Just in
you
your
ever,
rich...
so not that we need to go off the rails here, but have you ever tried one of those?
Yeah, breaks your arm.
Yeah.
Snap your arm off.
When I worked for the moving company, they had the original moving truck and it had the front crank.
so
So we
awkward.
got in there and played, and it's like I went around and the compression snapped the thing around. I thought I broke my friggin' wrist. It was like,
Yeah.
man, that thing is, yeah. You need to pay attention. That's not playtime.
Well, maybe that's a segue, which is, has the housing industry kept up with industrialization the way that, say, the automobile industry has?
No.
Not even close, right?
But I have a theory as to why that is. We all are okay with buying a car that looks like the neighbor's car. And for some reason, as Americans, we've decided that we need a completely unique to us house. Or at least we need to perceive it as being completely unique to us. Even though your spec builder built 75 of them last year and they just flipped the plan back and forth and made them different colors.
But to me, that's part of the rub, right? So we
That's why.
we think that they're custom built, but so many people buy stuff.
But
that
you know
looks
what's
just like-
interesting? Like, we think of cars, we think of our refrigerators, we think of our ranges as products. I don't think many of us think of our house as a product, right? Because, like, if something fails, we don't, in our car, we're at the dealership Monday morning, hey, my warranty, this window is leaking, or there's a noise coming from the front right wheel, whatever the case is.
I'll never buy a Dodge again.
Yeah,
because
or a refrigerator, right? I'll never buy this refrigerator again. And, it's got this hum in it and the warranty. But yet, we can move into a house and it has a leaky window, and it's like, yeah, okay, it's a leaky window. I'll get the builder over here whenever he can come over, and we'll fix that.
So there's a great 3-minute video clip made by that fellow from the Midwest who's an energy rater, but he does all kinds of cool videos. Can't remember his name, but the video is if cars were built like houses, and you know he goes through all the ways, just like you did, Steve, of things that we tolerate because they're site built that we would never tolerate in the production of a car. So what problem here? I love this approach. This is what you always do to me. What's the problem that off-site construction alternatives is trying to solve?
Well,
if it's
labor.
better,
It's
if
labor, right? I mean, that's the conversation that I always hear.
Well, it's labor. They claim it's labor. They claim there's efficiency. They claim there's better quality, and the claim is faster, more efficient, less waste.
There you go. Yep. So
And better quality, which I don't know. I mean, so let's challenge some of those. I don't know if we want to make a list, but better quality. I mean, I know some builders that you're not going to get a factory to match their quality, right? So that one's, it might be on the table for a large percentage of, let's say, first-time buyer homes. You know, builders that do that versus.
but you're saying that a site-built, crafted home can't be as well, can't have as high quality in a factory or an industrial setting?
Well, I mean, I guess it can, but it's the quality of the
You're not
people
going to up the
doing
quality
it.
from the people that you're thinking about.
Yeah,
You're not going to get better than what
for
Jim
example,
Wolfer's guys
we
do.
just did that big house, right? While they were waiting to put in the foundation, the guy in charge, Brian, built 345 feet of wall in the barn that we just built and stacked it up. And as soon as the foundation was done, they framed the floor and then they trucked all the walls down. So the walls were built off-site,
Okay. Yeah.
right? But they were a good quality system. I mean, they were in a nice controlled environment. They were able to square the walls up nice and right and sheathe them. And then we put the Sega My Vest on there, and they were actually able to roll it on the flat with a nice roller. So you got really good quality
But aren't you
control.
making an argument
making
for
the
offsite
argument,
construction
which is
in that case?
No. I get it, but what I'm saying is you might be able to get better quality, but that quality was determined by the people doing it, right? Like Brian and his crew would have done just as good a job down at the house if they built the house on the deck and stood it up.
That's what I don't agree with. That the whole thing about factory build is that you have environmental controls, you don't have weather, you don't have temperature changes, you know, you've got tools all lined up. If you build in a controlled environment, you can really nail the
reason why
quality
they don't
portion of this.
assemble cars outdoors?
Well, that's part of that video clip that's really compelling.
Yeah, I think the most compelling issue is the resource efficiency. Everything the company can buy in bulk, right?
Yeah.
So if you're building offsite walls, you can literally buy a truckload of framing nails, right? And you have the air compressor and systems in there. You can buy train loads of zip sheathing and 2x6s or whatever you're framing those walls in, and you know all of that stuff. And then you have that controlled environment. But I mean, part of it still comes down to execution, which we always talk about, right? You have to have the right people in there. If you can't find the right people to build it and work with the guys out on the job site, how is it that we're going to find the right people to work in the factory?
Well, the argument there that I always hear is it's easier to convince people to work in a conditioned space at table height where they don't have to lift things than it is to up and down the ladder in the rain, packing sheet goods through the mud. And if you are standardizing it and you can get more efficiency out of them, then you can afford to pay them a little bit better too. So now I get to work in a controlled
I bet they don't
environment.
get paid better, would be my guess, than somebody out at the job site. But anyway, that's
I don't know. My people make like $3 and $4
So
an hour.
my biggest argument too is it's the capitalist view. If it is such a great system, then why aren't we doing it?
Well, but more than once, I've been approached by a major
We've been approached by a company, remember, that had the idea of let's bring all the resources in. We would buy a, say, 200-acre development. We would build 2 tent factories.
Yep.
We would bring all the resources in, build the house on a trailer, and then trailer it out, slide it off the trailer onto the foundation. And we worked with that company for a couple of years to try and develop the system.
Yeah.
And their idea was, we'll build it like we build cars, but we'll just transport it out, slide it off on the foundation. And it didn't work. They built like 2 of them and realized it was...
So maybe the problem is that they don't build cars, because there are 2 major global automobile manufacturers who are trying to figure out how to build off-site. And I've always thought, well, maybe that's the problem, is that if the people who aren't driving the process don't already have experience in doing really good production of a different product, maybe, it's finally, well, you got peanut butter on my chocolate, you got chocolate on my peanut butter. You get people who...
Are you really making a Reese's reference? Isn't that how Reese's was born? It was like the original Reese's commercial. Like, hey, they fell into each other, and it's like, you got chocolate in my peanut butter.
So
thanks for recounting it, though. That was great podcasting. Go ahead, Peter.
So so we do have 2 major global automobile manufacturers who are trying to get into the housing industry in a big way.
Honda and who else?
Toyota.
Okay.
Are the 2 that I'm aware of.
The kings of efficiency.
And the idea is, hey, we know how to do this process. We're just going to.
So let me ask you this though, because this brings a whole different aspect to it. Are they trying to do it here in America, or are they trying to do it
eventually? Right. Honda bought some space here to do that.
Well,
they built some.
Because I was going to say, there's a cultural, right? I mean, in Japan, there's a cultural acceptance that we probably wouldn't appreciate in America.
Well,
as far as, I don't want a house built in a factory and just delivered to my job site.
And that's probably the $1 million question or more, is there already is a lot of production housing in other countries, particularly in Asia. But the question is, can we do that here in the United States? And
can we get people to buy it?
Yes, but the idea is, that we can take a car like the Chevy Spark, which
Yuck.
is...
Can we just yuck?
A motorized roller skate, and they build them all the time that don't leak water. You can drive them 70 miles per hour into a rainstorm, and they do just fine. And we've got houses sitting still that we can't keep water out of. So the idea is that if they can control the production, then the quality goes. I mean, think about air sealing. I mean, if you could accomplish that in a controlled environment as compared to a job site, could you build routinely 0.6 ACH 50 buildings because they're built in a controlled environment? And so the reason we're having this conversation is everybody knows all the problems that are inherent to site construction, but no one has figured out how to actually build either parts of buildings or whole modules that you then bring to the job site.
Well, that's incorrect. Lots of people have figured out how to do it.
Jake challenges
No one's
Peter
figured
with,
out how to
"You're
get people
wrong."
to buy it and buy into it to the point where it makes a difference.
Well-
because there are plenty of companies, we were just looking at Simple Homes in Denver on Instagram, that they do
way
just
to
what we're
plug them.
talking about. I'm plugging them. David's a nice guy.
I don't know, you know David. Who's Dave? Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here.
Let me in. I think the cops on.
No, Dave's not here, man.
God.
So,
But they have it figured out, and it does work for them. But it doesn't work in everybody's market, and it doesn't work for all the builders. And we all know how to nail walls together. We haven't all figured out how to sell or back what we're talking about.
So I'm looking right at you guys because you certainly design buildings custom for the site. You certainly build them. What would off-site mean to you?
But I don't think that's challenging our market, right? I think it's more of when you have somebody in Florida's putting up a 200 home development, that's a market for where you're building 5 different homes, but you're putting up 200 of them, right? Like Palladero Homes or Artistic Homes, the same thing.
Yeah.
Those are the candidates, the first line candidates for this. But beyond
think?
that,
Everything else in our industry goes to the rich people first. Aero barrier didn't start in, you know what I mean? Like,
all right, so let me give you
all
my
those products.
revelation first, because I think this is going to set us up for the next conversation.
Maybe.
The problem, I think, with offsite building is we don't know what questions to ask, or we haven't asked them yet. And I know this is always a basic premise of mine, but I think Honda and Toyota, companies like Honda and Toyota coming in it, are not going to come from the building approach. Like, if we sat here and tried to solve the offsite, we're going to say, okay, well, let's put a foundation in. How do I build wood framed walls offsite and bring them in and put them on my basement foundation? See, I think a company like Toyota or Honda is going to come in and say, let's forget about basements. Let's come up with a new foundation system. Like, can we put in
That we
a
can slide
grid
in.
of screw piles, and then we design every house on a 8 by 12 module,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's 16 foot by 24 foot or 16 foot by 36 foot. And we have this series of modules that we know we can just go across the site, and it's a 2 by 3 grid of helical piles or whatever the system is.
Yeah.
But I think we're not asking the right questions. We're trying to adapt to a somewhat archaic system and think we can make it better by keeping the archaic system in place and simply just changing the process, which is, in my eyes, idiotic. And I think that's the reason why it doesn't work. I think it needs to be a revolutionary change, and it needs to be a new product and change the culture of building for it to work, which is a huge step. But you need a company like Toyota or somebody to come in and build a development of 500 homes and say, looky here, these houses
We can do
are
it.
cheap, efficient, first-time home buyers can buy these houses, and we can do luxury models.
But does that mean that there's no play for off-site construction for custom high-end builders and architects?
Well,
Well, there's
what's
houses
his
out there
name?
that have been built. We've all sat through seminars.
Benson
And-
Wood,
Yeah, I mean,
you know.
I don't want to talk bad about them. I've been in a bunch. It just seems like it's a little hokey in some places. From a building science perspective, what you've done is kind of like the SIPs industry. You've taken all of the challenges and you've concentrated it to the connections, right? So the field of that pre-framed wall probably is right, but now we have to get that joint right.
Yeah.
And the joint, because it's not fabricated on site, might be pretty close, but not close enough from a building science perspective, and then it could be easily overlooked and have a problem.
What if, let's say that one of the outcomes that you guys could use would be, the Bensonwood approach is to cluster all, the plumbing and mechanical into a plumbing and mechanical core, and then you buy that, right? It's a centralized system, and then Steve, you design the home and you build the rest of the home, but your starting point is you're going to use, the Bensonwood structured plumbing and mechanical system, because you tend to do that in your buildings anyway.
You do, but then you're limited to, the freedom of where do I put the bathroom? Because the bathroom is going to be inextricably linked to the kitchen now and this
Right.
other powder room.
But could you do that, or would you feel that's too much of a design
I
constraint?
mean, you could do it, but I think it's one of those things where you're going to, all of a sudden, you're going to have the client that says, I'm not buying into that.
Which is what we were talking about earlier.
Right.
If we all could agree that our houses could look alike, this would be very simple.
No, but I'm not saying they're looking like it. I'm just taking the
They
plumbing
are on
core
some
and saying
level
is,
if we have one constraining item where all of the mechanicals have to be in one part of the house. Like you're not then building a house that goes 75 feet in each direction because you're not going to be 80 feet from a bathroom laying down in your bedroom at night.
It's a challenge that I think the investment to do it right is astronomical, and I think that's why we're not there, because it is a whole new way of thinking, and you need the right people to do it. Because I think if you're sitting there and just thinking historically how we build houses, and you're looking to make that next evolution of these bad ideas, right? Because the reason you're doing that is because you think, okay, building on site is a bad idea. But all you're doing is taking that bad idea and kind of regenerating it into a new look somewhere else, and then you're trying to make valid excuses as to why it's such a good idea. I think it has to be a whole new revolution for it to become successful.
To overcome platform framing that's pretty simple and
and I'm not saying that it's right, but like 3D concrete printed houses, right? Matt's video. I'm not saying that's right, but that's kind of a revolutionary thinking that is out of the box, right? And the funny thing is I had a conversation with Lexi not too long ago about, like, before you can think out of the box, you need to truly understand what's in the box.
Sorry, Alexander Bajek, your daughter.
Basic, yes, yeah, because we have
junior architect.
We have that conversation about how do we train the people that have just come on board and work with us, and we were having a conversation about just thinking out of the box and coming up with new ideas and stuff. And I said, before you can think out of the box, you have to have an immense understanding of what's in the box, because you have to understand what needs to change, what's the root problem, and know what questions to ask. And you can only get that by experience and time and doing enough of whatever it is to now ask the right questions that you can get out of the box.
I think the inherent problem for me, Steve, is that most of what we talk about in terms of getting sort of the building science right, it's all about the struggle of per home, per lot, per site, getting things well built, right?
But if you were able to build
Execution.
right,
Execution.
But if you were able to build from that perspective of let's revolutionize the way we're going to think. From a building science perspective, it's somewhat pretty damn easy. It's like, okay, let's build a house. Every house, we're just going to engineer a 30-inch overhang. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bang. You've eliminated 50% of the housing industry problems by making that one declaration.
So maybe one of the problems is, I got approached by both Honda and Toyota to work with them on this idea. Maybe what the mistake is, they need to go to a high-performance custom architect, right? Because a lot of the solutions could be design solutions to making the building less vulnerable to performance issues. Maybe what they're doing is not talking to a forward-thinking, innovative, high-performance custom architect like you, right? To say, hey, one of the things you have to build in is high-performance design.
Like, understand you need to make the product so successful people want it.
Yeah.
Right? And so how do you make something that successful? Obviously, we make it healthy and comfortable, but if we could make it somewhat maintenance free, if we can make it highly more durable, then right, and problem free, then you're on to something, right? At least you're on to a more acceptable cultural shift.
Yeah, we were at the house yesterday with you, and you had all these techniques for making sure, like spray painting the floor, using a template to print do not cover. Those are all execution things about high performance, getting it right on the job site. And that's because you're trying to solve for execution problems.
Yeah, solving for specific problems we've had. Right?
Yeah.
But look at, we have examples out there. Look at the mobile home market, right? Why do people hate it and why do people not want it? One, the thing is limited to being 14 feet wide or whatever, right?
Yep.
So that means with a hallway running down a room, the biggest room I can have is probably on the order of 11 feet or so. I can't have good overhangs, which makes it not very durable. Space is of the essence, so the wall's got to be thin, so it's not very energy efficient.
It's elevated.
Right?
So you add one more.
What they did was basically took the custom home model and stripped it down to the cheapest product they could send down the road.
Yeah.
And those were the two parameters. How can we make it less expensive and ship it? And those were the two guiding parameters for that product. And that's why we have it. But the people that buy it, they buy it because that's fulfills their means and
Cost. Yeah.
And-
I mean, it's a
right.
cost-driven market.
And it's a huge market. I mean, I forget what the number was, but Armin had done some work, and when he told me how many like manufactured homes in America get sold, I was like, holy cow! It was way beyond what I had thought.
And they, same as anything else, they have a resale market. But on the resale market, you can put it where you want it.
Right. Yeah.
I have a friend that bought one for $7,500. They bought a three-bedroom house that was like 25 years old for $7,500.
But I think if, Honda or Toyota is looking at how do we take this product and just build it in a factory, I think that's the wrong approach.
Maybe what they should be doing is something that we talked about before, which is making a better connection between what the car provides you and what the housing does. In other words, Tesla and the Powerwall, right? Make more connections between automobiles and homes in terms of the energy systems.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
But then you have to also, yes, so they can do it. But then there's this big hurdle of let's say Toyota figures it out and they have a product. Now they have to bring it to market. And how do you deal with, say, the top 10 home builders in the country, right? The Pulte Homes, the Centex Homes, et cetera, et cetera. How do you prove to people that your house is better than theirs? Now, their houses aren't any great shakes for the most part, right? From a durability perspective, building science perspective, but they look nice. They're on nice pieces of land. They're in communities that all look the same.
Yeah.
People find it attractive for whatever reason, and they are okay living there.
But I think what you're asking is Jake sort of hinted at this, is it simply a marketing penetration issue, or is it that no one has really cracked the nut about how to, break
Well, I don't think anybody's challenged it, because to challenge a Pulte Homes, Centex Homes, and the top 10 companies, you have to be one hell of a bully to challenge that wall, right?
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
And so nobody, Benson would, they do a good job and stuff, but they certainly don't have the financial resources to play games against Pulte Homes and Centex Homes together.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the country. They don't. They can work in the Northeast or wherever they operate, and they can sell onesies, twosies here and there. But they can't go in and say, I'm going to put 500 of these homes, and hey, Pulte Homes, I'm coming after you.
Well, maybe to summarize, the reason the reason we're still waiting after 50, 60, 70 years is that it's just a really tough nut to crack, because you got to crack the technical issues related to it, and then you've got to penetrate the market.
I mean, the thing that I really like about it, so I will talk about that, the things we potentially like about it is that you're able to make decisions that maybe you wouldn't make on site. For example, like if I built something off site, I might be able to go from an 8-inch wall to a 12-inch wall. And I might be able to say eliminate spray foam if I had an aversion to it, and go to something that is all cellulose or hemp or wool or something, because now you're not buying wool for one house, you're buying wool or cellulose for 500 homes this year. So you're buying it by the train load. And
economies of scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have the ability to potentially change the way we build there. But I still think it's like the minute you move it off site and you try to be the same product just built somewhere else, I think you're pushing a rock uphill.
We have to agree it's something different.
Yeah.
Or at least acknowledge that there's something different about it. I also made a note, if we're talking about offsite contracting, one of the things that I thought about was you don't have to worry about the contractor sleeping with your wife anymore. If he's not around.
Cut to the real problem.
Yeah, I'm an idea man. What do you want from me?
Is
All
that
I
the
have to
note
say
that you
about
want to
that
end
is
this discussion on?
if that happens, you're not doing your job. So I don't know what to tell you. If you're in fear of that, you got
My wife would be really amused that I'm about to be the adult supervision with this group.
There's a builder in this market that is now retired that had a wife, remodeled a house for some people, divorced his wife, married the lady that he was remodeling a house for. She got divorced, and then built a house for somebody else and married the lady then.
So we've just decided that the way to change the industry
is get the contractor away from the client's wife.
Holy smokes. And you heard it here first. The UnBuild podcast is unraveling how we build buildings and how we build personal relationships.
Building is about personal relationships.
There we go.
It's understanding.
But you know, it's interesting though, because when I think about it, we've all seen all kinds of demonstration houses and stuff, but why didn't it ever take off? I mean, I grew up about maybe about 10, 12 miles from GE Plastics. And I don't know if you knew, but they had the GE Plastics home
house.
in Pittsfield.
Yep.
Right? It was all plastic and highly durable and all that. And I bet you it's still standing out there. But why didn't that ever, especially the way the world went to plastics in the 80s, 90s, etc. Why didn't housing move into that industry? Car industry certainly did, right? They migrated from steel to fiberglass and plastic and other materials that were molded and shaped and, you know, clipped on. And, you know, you were talking about earlier this morning when we were there. How do cars figure out how to put on moldings and stuff, but we can't figure out how to put it on a house?
Yeah.
And it's because they build the car and then apply the moldings to it afterwards. So they build the success and then they just add some pieces to it.
I mean, I remember when we were working for Environments for Living, you know, that program, which is a high performance building program, the issue of the tolerances for building cars and how they absolutely hone that. They build, you know, everybody thinks that car gets built in one location. We're shipping parts across borders for Canada, Mexico, and yet the tolerances are so tight that it doesn't matter where it's made.
Just open the hood of the car and look, right? Like we can't build a house and figure out how to put ductwork in it, and the thing's 5,000 square feet, and we still have problems.
We still have to search out a
You
spot.
pop the hood of a car, they have a firewall that measures about 6 feet by maybe 24 inches. And they know exactly where every penetration is, how it turns, curves, and avoids the next penetration and goes to where it's supposed to go.
Yeah. I think what we're agreeing to is that no one's come close to cracking the nut yet.
Yep.
But I think that if I had to pick somebody, car manufacturers are probably close, because when you build, they understand how to design, take the design into concept and then take it into production.
Yeah.
And when they take it into production, it's not necessarily flawless because they still build lemons, one in every couple thousand or whatever, fails to make it through. But like I said, when you pop the hood, they got their act together.
Okay.
And they're the next largest scale operation behind housing, just about.
So I'm going to wrap this up by saying this has been a 40-minute session to simply get UnBuild It, Steve, Peter, and Jake to be hired by a major manufacturer of automobiles.
Let's do this.
To make billions of dollars together by finally figuring out how to do high performance, custom offsite construction.
Volunteer to handle negotiations for
You heard it
You're
here
welcome.
first.
There you go.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the just enlightening session on factory built or offsite construction alternative.
I'm so inspired.
Don't forget to click the subscribe button below if you're watching this on YouTube. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Do you think that it's going to happen in your lifetime? Do you think that Honda and Toyota have a chance? Also, if you're listening just to the podcast and not on YouTube, go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and let's have a comment on iTunes about how Honda might save the world for housing. We'll see.
There you go.
Thanks. See you next time.